Hey there, guys. Welcome to another episode of the MH Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Miles Harrison, and today we're going to be going through the differences between doing a successful fat loss phase versus a weight gaining phase, muscle building phase. So if you guys are ready, let's get straight into it. So when we're talking about the two phases, we've got also talking about in what diameter do we mean in these two phases, because the way that we're going to be doing it is going to be very different from the way we would do it if we were someone like, let's say, general population. Someone who just wants to lose 5-10 pounds is going to do it completely very different from someone who's doing it like a bodybuilder, for example, because they are doing it for the sport. They're doing it to maximize a result, where the other one does want to maximize a result. Probably maximize for the gym client, optimize for the bodybuilder. They're looking for the most optimal way to get what they on, because there's such small, mind you, it's mine. Bloody hell, Miles, get your words right. Such small majors. I still put it up and all that, but you get what I do. You get what I mean. Whereas as a gym client, we're looking to maximize what we're trying to get out of when you've got such a busy life, when the sport is not your main thing. You've got jobs, you've got family, you've got other interests and all that. You've got a social life as well. I'm not saying that bodybuilders don't have a social life, but generally they will focus more towards their to their sport. But anyway, so when we've distinguished between the two, we need to make sure that, first of all, again, I always say this as well, we need to understand where we are right now. Like, we need to establish a good base of, right, things of your lifestyles, what you're working like, eating habits already, how much movements we're doing, how much training we're doing as well. And then once we've got the general baseline and we go, right, Miles, we want to start losing a little bit of weight versus what we want to put, what are we going to be doing? And we could get things involved like a calorie calculator. There's thousands on the online now. I'm sure AI can probably do it for you right now. I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty of what you need to do with that, but you can find a general calculator. Now, I'm going to do my plan for what I was going to say for fat loss first, and then we'll flip it onto the weight gain afterwards. Because usually most people tend to listen to losing body weight, then tend to gain it. So when we're losing body weight, now I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but we need to be, in order to lose body weight, we need to be in a calorie deficit. So that means that the calories that we're consuming are less than the calories that we're burning out. Calories I put in my mouth versus the activities that we do. You get it. Now, you might be asking yourself, like, right, well, where do I start with all this as well? So once you've got your calculator, you need to find something that's called your TDEE, total daily energy expenditure. And this is going to take in things like your height, your weight, and your current activities as well. And in some calculators as well, your goal weight. You can put that into a system and it gives you a number and stuff like that. And once we say there, usually the recommendation is 500 calories below that maintenance. Now, the reason why they say 500 is because usually 1 gram of body fat is 3,500 calories. And usually the recommendation when it comes to calories per how much weight you lose for a week is usually 1 pound of body weight over the week. Some people will say less, some people say. I would generally say 1% of body weight per week, 1 to 2 pounds per week as well, is a good number to use. But if you are someone who's got potentially a little bit more body fat to lose, you could probably get away with losing more body fat right at the beginning. So once you've got your calorie targets, I would recommend a deficit of 300 to 500 at max. Any more, you're going to start going to territories of feeling weak. You're not going to fuel yourself. Sleep's going to go deprived. Stress levels are going to start raising. It ain't great, guys. It ain't fun. And I definitely lean towards slow. Slow is better with this one. Like the tortoise always wins the race, rather than try to do a rapid fat loss phase. Now, can you do a rapid fat loss phase? Yes, definitely. But, and this is the things that we're going to be going in today, there are some things that could potentially happen if you decide to do a rapid fat loss phase in a short period of time. So let's go back to the center ball. Then when you start looking at macronutrients, so we're talking of things like carbohydrates, proteins, fats, this is generally the split I would go to. First of all, you need to calculate your protein. Now, your protein targets can generally be 1.6 grams times your body weight, in usually kg. Usually they say the number between 1.6 and 2.2. You could push it up to 2.5 because when you're in a calorie deficit, I do recommend a higher protein intake, just so you're not obviously losing the hard work gains that you're in and stuff like that. But also as well, it's really good for obviously helping you keep yourself full. And generally people who stay on a higher protein diet, generally also then keep the body fat off more than they would do if you do a crash diet. Be in mind of that. Anyway. So once you've got that, so you've got your targets, you're gonna do 1.6 to 2.2 times your body weight. Then from there, I will then gravitate to carbohydrates. Actually, no, saying that, I lie. I would probably gravitate towards fat first. Now, fats we don't need as much. We don't need as much of, because if we're looking at the calories per gram of each macronutrients, you've got protein, that's 4, 3.2 if you really want to be precise, 4 for carbohydrates, and a 9 for fats. So yeah, it is a quite dense calorie, so we don't need a great deal about it. Usually 0.8 to 1 gram per body weight in kilograms is enough. Some people like to function with a little bit more. Some people like to function with a little bit less. As long as you're getting an animate fat, you generally are good there. And it's really important to have fats. A lot of people downgrade obviously having fats in their diet. Obviously, it's good for things like hormones. It's also good for fat soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K. I'll try not to make this a super nutritional, precise podcast episode, because I'm not a trained nutritionist nor dietitian. This is the stuff that I generally just go through with my clients, and this is the thing that we work on and stuff like that as well. So once you've got that, the rest of the calories I will go towards carbohydrates. And yes, you do need carbohydrates. You need all macronutrients. I'm not a big advocate of any diets that massively reduces anything, whether that's the carnivore diet or anything like that, because guess what, guys? You need carbs. Your brain runs on glucose. And guess what? If you understand that reference, good on you. You've watched a pretty decent film from a guy who generally looks a little bit like me. And you probably know the meme straight away. So once you've got all your calories and all your macros, you need to then go, right, how do I know if the deficit is working? And this is where weight comes into it. Now, for my clients, I generally get them to weigh either 3 times a week and above. Now, the reason why I say 3 is because what we're trying to look at is trends. Now, from a day-to-day basic, we know that weight's going to fluctuate. Weight is your relationships to Earth's gravity. It is not just body fat. It's obviously things like bones, tendons, muscles, water, glycogen, all that stuff. There's a loads of factors that can play into weight. So this is why I get you to weigh yourself more and get you to do more of some other stuff that we're going to be talking about as well. And if we're setting a target of, let's say, example, 1 to 2 pounds per week, then that's what we need to aim for. We need to look at the weekly trends, and we need to see, as the weekly trends, that number going down on a regular basis. Like I said, if you're a little bit from the bigger person, or you're just getting started in the weight loss phase, you might see a bigger chunk of that at the beginning, but generally over the next couple of weeks, we want to see that trend starting to go to around 1 or 2 weeks as well. And if you picked your new calorie target, and you've done a couple of weeks of weighing yourself, and you've seen that the weight hasn't really moved around that much, you're pretty good, damn sure that's your maintenance, and then you can start applying your new calorie deficit target. Then from there, we're going to have a look at other things like measurements, for example, and photographs. Now, when I say to one of my clients, some clients like to just do what I do with them, which is usually every 2 months, we do photographs and measurements in our review sessions. But in my later years of coaching, I've started moving into a more get them to do that approach. So I'll teach them how to do a waist measurement, hip measurement, and then I'll get them to do progress photos as well, because there's a level of accountability that comes with that. But also as well, if you can see progress on those photographs and also on those measurements, but your weight doesn't change, that's a pretty good sign that some body fat is reducing. And this is where this is almost like the caveat of obviously just using weight is, could it so depend on so many different metrics? It's not the most reliable source, but if we keep using it enough, it becomes a reliable source. But I still like to use other forms of measurements to get an overall bigger picture. So we keep repeating that process. Obviously, we're going to throw things in there like making sure we've got a daily step count, so we can track some kind of daily activities. And we're also going to track things like your workouts. I'm not the person, for me, not to go, right, you need to burn every day 400 calories of 400 calories of whatever activity and stuff like that. Now, do I think that's also useful? For some people it will be. Some people it might be a good kind of way to like measure how much activity they're doing. And also as well, I think a lot of people are motivated to burn more calories and thinking of it as like this is an aerobic exercise. This is a weight training exercise. Like, get you to feel like you're actually hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. So I'm not totally against it like my younger self used to be. But I don't generally advertise always doing that. So, yeah, so that's generally how I would do it. Now, once you get to a point, actually, we'll talk about things like deloads and refeed phases. So, deload and refeed phases are usually periods of time, usually whether that's a 1 day or 1 week period, where we talk you back to maintenance. And generally, I will definitely do that because, excuse me, because I've probably noticed that things like your sleep's starting to drop, mood's starting to go down, energy's going down. You might be getting little niggles and stuff like that. And sometimes it can be a good tool if you've got a longer period of a fat loss, because generally, as we go longer to a fat loss, the weight loss that we tend to use starts to go down. Generally because of that neat non-exercise activity thermogenesis, so everything that we do that isn't considered activities, me moving my hands and stuff like that, starts naturally going down as a mechanism of the brain. Think of it like this: if you're not putting more fuel into a fire, the fire isn't going to be lit enough. And that's, people used to call that revenue metabolic rate or whatever it is. There's a load of bollock there, guys. Like, you can't boost your metabolism, really. Your metabolism is based off the fuel that you give itself and the activities that you're doing. So generally just normal thermogenesis. But we might use those type of tools in there to help you kind of stay a little bit more adherence. Yes, that does mean usually the fat loss phase is usually maybe a little bit longer, but if you get your result, who cares? And then once we get to your goal weight or the body fat that you want to be at, then we need to enter into a new maintenance phase. Now, this is so important for so many people. So many people get into their fat loss phase, think that they're happy with the body fat, and then go back to the way they're eating than before. You are now a completely different person from what you used to be. And if you've lost a lot of our weight, you will not burn as nearly enough calories as you used to do. So we need to now spend a little bit of time finding your new maintenance. This could be, what the word's going to use now. People like to use the word of reverse dieting. And technically what reverse dieting is week by week, we slowly start incrementing more calories into your diet. Okay, I'm still expecting you to track like you normally get to do. I might even mention anything about like the form of tracking. We'll talk about that in a second. But when we go back into the maintenance phase, we're still going to be tracking all the things that we did in the fat loss phase. What we're just generally looking for now is a general plateau. So we're looking for a couple of weeks, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, where the weight stays starting scale. And then we could probably agree on also that is generally your new maintenance phase. And that is the calories that we stick yourself out. It always surprises me when people go from losing a lot of weight to wanting to stay at the body where they are. And they all think, oh, well, I don't have to do the work. That just got me to this place. I'm kind of done. That's almost like almost saving a couple of years worth of money to save up for something and then spending on completely something else. It just makes no sense to me whatsoever. Now, obviously, quickly should be a given, but obviously when it comes to tracking, there's multiple ways of doing it. You could do a food calendar from photographs. You can do some form of food tracking, whether that's MyFitnessPal. That is my estimate. That is my number one recommendation. Track your intake. Get a food tracker. Build some awareness. It's always the best way of doing it. There's loads of free ones that are on the App Store and all that as well. You can come and join my services, and we've got an app that we use. So just track your food. Build awareness. Get you to understand what food has more things like protein, fats, fiber, all these things. All things are going to make your life a hell of a lot easier when it comes to this fat loss phase. And that's it. That's generally this kind of the strategy that we will kind of go through. I can obviously go into details, obviously making sure things are like keeping a higher protein diet because it'll make you fuller for longer, high fiber stuff, high volume of food and all that, making sure they've got food in your diet that's going to be a load of volume but doesn't have that much calories. Usually fruits and vegetables fall into that bracket. But I think I will be here all day going on with that as well. But yeah, and that's generally the kind of strategy to go. Now, when it comes to fat loss, we've just done fat loss. What are you on about? When we talk to fat gain, fat weight gain, muscle building, I would even take a more slower approach. Now, a lot of people will think that you can build a lot of muscle quite quickly. And yes, you can. If you're taking tren, if you're taking drugs, then yeah, you can definitely do it. But muscle building and making a decent amount of muscle building does take time. And especially if you're not someone if you're someone who only can train 2 to 3 times a week and you've got a busy lifestyle, maybe you're taking care of people and stuff, you're just going to have to take a lot more of a slower approach just because you're not living the day-to-day life. You cannot manage it or put as much time as it as someone who generally lives it, like a bodybuilder, for example. So, you do all the things that we've just talked about as well. This time, though, we would have a smaller, what we would call a surplus. 300 max. Now, the reason why I say 300 max is because we're trying to minimize the amount of fat gain that you gain. And then from a weekly target, we're looking at 1 pound, 1 or 2 pound per month. Compared to fat loss, when we've gone 1 or 2 pound per week, we want you to go a lot slower. And we just keep doing this. And then we keep going this to the point where weight plateaus. Or if you start looking at things like training, like energy is not probably increasing, the weights are not going up as much as they were doing before, we started hitting a bit of a plateau. And you might even see a little bit of a weight drop as you're kind of, and not 100% growing, be honest, but you're almost like your muscle mass and the amount of energy that you're consuming is matched up to the calories that we're using right now. That's when we can start increasing calories again. And again, we keep improving our process until we get to a goal weight, and then you stay at that. You don't need to drop or anything like that, because that's your maintenance. We go into the plus as well. Now, if you've maybe gained a little bit of body fat, which is quite normal in a weight gain phase, people do tend to go with a little bit more body fat as they came into it, then you could probably maybe just do a small deficit to lose that kind of body weight, to find that kind of new maintenance again and be happy with that kind of body weight. But yeah, that's generally the process is. Now, when it comes to macronutrients, the only things I would probably swap around is the carbohydrates and the protein. When we're in a surplus, we don't need as much protein. The reason why we have a higher protein when we're in, because we don't want to lose that muscle mass, but we want to maximize carb intake. We want as much energy, quick energy, that we can consume. So therefore, we can do more workouts, we can work harder, we can push our muscles to the limit and gain more muscle mass. And that's generally the process there, guys. Now, if you're someone who's just generally just doing this for want to improve in body composition, you want to get a little bit stronger, a little bit healthier, that is generally, you could probably follow that pattern towards a T. If you're someone who's doing sports, maybe like me, you do team sports like football, we've got to be quite careful about when we do these phases. I would not recommend doing a fat loss phase when in the middle of the season, because we don't want to deprive ourselves of energy when we've got a sport that's very, very highly carbohydrate, glucose type of sport. We need a lot of energy, and usually when obviously we're in a fat loss phase, carbohydrates usually come down as well. So we can start seeing performance impairment, which we just don't want. Not only that, as well, can then negatively affect things like our recovery, our sleep, our stress levels can increase as well. So generally, we want to stay away from that in season. You can do it, but again, it'll probably have to be a lot slower than the method I've just talked about in order to do it. Now, when I say when you're in season, I actually would probably put you in maintenance or a little bit of a surplus while in season, because like I said, as the games go on, as trainings go on, fatigue is going to be built up throughout the season, and we need to make sure we have fuel to recover. Simple as that. But yeah, that's it. But any big changes regarding body composition, mostly stay away from the games. Usually do it in the off season, where you can probably train a little bit harder. You can probably push yourself because you haven't got training or matches later on in the day. And that's it, guys. So yeah, so that's it. That's generally the kind of like the some of the things that I think about when it comes to these kind of phases as well, and some of the things we talked about. If you've generally got any questions you want to talk about regarding these topics, is there anything that you feel like I've kind of missed, or anything that I need to go a little bit deeper on, by all means, drop me a message and stuff. And if you got any other ideas on what other episodes I could be talking to, then let me know. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for listening to this episode of the MH Performance Podcast. I'll see you all in the next one.